What if we could learn from outstanding leaders in business, sports, and education from some of the best voices in corporate America? Lighting the Path is a series of interviews with industry leaders whose stories highlight strategies that build purpose-driven cultures, engage and retain top talent, develop drivers that create high-performance teams, and connect people to the vision of your company. Join us to hear from game-changing, talented leaders whose paths make a difference at work and at home.
I'm excited about our guest today, Frankie Berkoben, and for a very specific reason. It has this rare background, high tech and high heart mixed together. And as we're visiting, learning about her journey, going from an engineering mindset into that of being a consultant, moving from sort of the business side of an organization to the human side of the organization. It's not too divergent. You can hear from our conversation how she really helps people understand how those have to be interconnected. And when I think about both her mind and her heart, there's something that I read about her recently that I just fell in love with, is that she is an avid reader. And I'm looking at this, it says that as a parent to a tiny child, she read 10 books a day, right? Mostly about trains, trucks, and toilets. Uh, this is a professional mother we're talking to. So, for Frankie, seriously, I'm just so looking forward to our conversation today. Thanks for joining us.
Oh, thank you for that beautiful introduction, Mike. You have this fantastic way with words. And yes, this is about meshing different aspects of ourselves and like not putting ourselves in silos or boxes. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's especially as leaders, and we're going to spend this time kind of helping people who are either in a leadership role now or trying to aspire to be that, just working on sort of honing that muscle. Because again, something that I read that I think really speaks loudly to this audience, the weight that we take on as leaders is taking inconsistent excellence, right? And the frustration that goes with that and burnout to move it to sustained and more importantly, sustainable progress. And what I love when I read about you said, I need to meet this woman because of the fact you said in all walks of life. Because what we're talking about today is not just what happens in the office, it happens at home, doesn't it?
And we are who we are, and how we show up is who we are.
That's right.
And compartmentalization is a wonderful trait sometimes, but we can't escape the fact that if we've had a bad night's sleep, we may show up with frayed emotions in
Yeah.
that important meeting.
I love that then. So help the people who are listening in on our conversation today understand more about how you show up. Tell us a little bit about you and how you ended up in this field that you're in.
Yeah, I mean, I went to the University of Cambridge and I studied earth sciences, which is a very interdisciplinary field. And then I started a PhD. But one of the things that I realized during my PhD is that the nitty-gritty of what I was working on didn't really match the reality of what I was seeing in terms of human behavior out in the field. I was working on climate science and things like that. And I then went on into engineering consulting for a long time. I also spent time in California state government, helping with legislation. And I live in the San Francisco Bay Area, and I started taking on more technical roles as well outside of geological engineering and program management and product management roles too. And I was in the middle of a career pivot.
I think you actually, I love this phrase you used. It wasn't a
Career
pivot,
wobble.
a
That's
career
right.
wobble. I thought that's an awesome way of expressing that.
Well, yeah, and thank you for picking up on that because I thought that a career pivot would be clear, but
Hmm.
actually it involved a lot of self-doubt. And that kind of doubt and those extra perspectives were actually really necessary for understanding what it is that drove me and how my brain actually functioned. So during that career wobble, I was doing a lot of self-reflection and also gathering 360 data from a lot of people that I'd worked with and things like that before. And through that, I discovered I discovered that I actually have ADHD, which was a real shock to me because the stereotypes did not prepare me for for that because I'm not hyperactive. I did really, really well in school and also professionally, and well, inconsistently. I was either excellent or not, and it was very interest driven. And from there, um, I with those four little letters ADHD, it shed light on so many things. It helped me let go of a lot of shame about the ways that I thought I should, that pesky word should, act,
Mm-hmm.
feel, produce, behave, perform. And I acknowledged that, yeah, a lot of things made sense logically, but logistically or functionally, they were a lot harder, or they were so context dependent that it was mystifying to figure out, well, what do I need in order to succeed? And I trained as a coach, and through that, mainly so that I could coach myself, so that I could be on my own team. And through that process, you have to practice coaching other people, and I discovered that I had a real aptitude for it and a love for it. Just
Yeah. And
helping.
that's why this is so important for you and I to be talking about this, because in leadership today, leaders are not their value doesn't increase by their ability to manage. I believe that their value increases by their ability to coach others. That the people that work with and for the leaders, what they need is if they're high potential, high performers, highly capable, coach me. Let me play the game, but coach me. And so this journey that you've been on, honing yourself as a in your coaching capabilities, I think offers a really cool insight, especially as we go from this diagnosis of ADHD, which is a hyperactive brain processing is moving at a rapid rate of speed. Um, it fits right into leadership functionality and the pressures that leadership face, doesn't it?
It does. And on many levels, I mean, I've worked with mid to senior leaders at Google, Airbnb, Meta, Microsoft, and even the Biden White House. And there are a couple of things that really stand out in terms of the positive traits of having a brain that sees things slightly differently. So many people who are neurodivergent think in systems, the big picture view, seeing everything interconnected, very interdisciplinary. So you'll have a lot of entrepreneurs, startup founders. I work with several startup founders and CEOs who see a different way of doing things and who have not only the ambition, but also the charisma to bring other people on board. So there's that aspect of it. And the ability to think strategically rather than getting stuck in the weeds, and to be able to predict potential outcomes and consequences, and to live in that space of ambiguity is also a real strength that is mirrored between high-performing leaders and many smart people with ADHD. So those are some of the like sparkly, amazing pieces of it. But I think what we were maybe going towards is, what are the similarities in terms of challenges?
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Very much so. If you look at this thing from a similarities, especially that a business leader, an entrepreneur, somebody who's responsible for others, um, we can't control our day by just pushing everything aside. We have to bring and really help the people that are following us to have to be able to be productive in the middle of sometimes chaos, different situations, different things that are going on. And so because of that, we have to be able to not only control our brains as leaders from a leadership functionality, functions of a leader, is to create an environment where people feel the sense of, uh, of psychological safety. It's a
yeah.
big term that you hear a lot right now as people are trying to process situations and circumstances. What have you learned in your journey as leaders that as they're dealing with people who have very divergent ways of being able to approach things that they need to take in to be able to create an atmosphere of psychological safety?
Wow. And we could spend hours just talking about that.
Yeah, take 2 minutes. Go ahead.
Thanks, Mike. Well, so it starts with yourself.
Yes.
The more able you are, and you see this, like people who have such executive presence, they hold themselves differently. They're resilient, but in a flexible way rather than a rigid and brittle way. That they model um, the challenges and joys of being human. They share that, oh, this is slightly difficult for me. Can somebody else take this on? Um,
Hmm.
and it removes a lot of,
You're talking about vulnerability?
yeah, a little bit of vulnerability. But, but without it being a big deal, it's just, yeah, people have different strengths. And this is one of the areas where I don't have a lot of strength, but you do.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that what we've seen a lot is that really high performing teams have complementary skill sets and strengths, and that not everybody is cookie cutter and the same. And that actually that leads to, yes, it can lead to friction, but it can also lead to like amazing, creative, and beautiful, and cohesive, and internally coherent products and services and initiatives.
Yeah. Have you seen where as leaders we have a tendency to get in the way of our people performing for all that they might be capable of?
I mean, yeah, 100% of people think that other people act the same way as they do. 100%. Like, I mean, like
Yeah.
that's,
Or they should at least. So,
well, that, um, because we live in our brains all of the time. So our assumptions about what is and isn't hard, our assumptions about what is and isn't possible are informed by our own stories, our own professional and personal experiences, and also the way our brains are wired. And one of the things that I come up against, or that many of my clients experience, is that um, and this is really interesting, that the complex things come really easily to many twice exceptional, gifted ADHD leaders and creatives. The complex things are easy, but the quote unquote simple things are really challenging.
hmm.
And it's that nonlinear, that's the opposite of what we expect. We expect that simple equals easy, complex equals difficult. And that's why, um, and the reason is executive functioning is the thing. The more administrative or rote or um, repetitive tasks that rely on memory or systems, and rather than creativity and big picture thinking or emotional intelligence, um, tend to be a lot harder when executive functions are impaired.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Is that because of um, the brain chases the challenge and it actually kind of runs away from boredom. Uh,
That is a beautiful way of putting it. The brain chases the challenge.
mm-hmm.
Hmm. I mean, there's good challenge. Like there's a sweet spot. You want it to be challenging enough to be interesting, but not so challenging that your agency and autonomy are called into question and you feel helpless
Mm-hmm.
in the face of that challenge. So, understanding what that sweet spot is for individuals on your team or for teams as a collective, too, is really helpful to know, because not challenging enough, you don't get that sense of reward. You don't get that sense of satisfaction. You don't get purpose or engagement. And as
Mm-hmm.
we know, we need both of those.
That's right.
Um, and, sometimes it's helpful to have rote tasks that you can just plug into your podcast and just, type away at. But if that's the majority of people's work, when their brains are itching for more engagement, for more,
Mm-hmm.
you know, you know, creativity or intellectual stimulation, that's not going to work. So, I mean, you just basically described the role of dopamine.
I was going to ask you if it was a pursuit of dopamine, is kind of what I know it is for me. It's like it's really funny. Um, If I've got a deadline to work on, it drives my wife crazy. My wife is a planner. She will start getting ready for a trip a week out. She'll bring the table out, start packing. Day before, I'm going, where's my socks? It's like I got to do it because it's there's something about as the deadline gets closer, I get jazzed up. I get moving on. That's just me. I'm not saying
It's
it's a
not just you,
strength.
actually.
Yeah.
No, it's not just you. And it's like, we live as humans, we are in a complex world where we're bombarded with so much information and so many things that we can be aware of. And the role of deadlines or things like immediacy, it brings things closer, which means that decisions become a lot clearer.
Hmm.
Suddenly, if you only have 12 hours before the report is due, well, you're not going to be doing something extra like going out to play tennis.
Hmm.
Or, that the trade-offs and consequences become a lot clearer, and you're working with a smaller array of decisions. And so minimizing decision fatigue is one of the things that a lot of leaders try to do. I mean, Steve Jobs and his famous black turtlenecks, right?
Hmm.
Like eliminating the number of decisions that we need to make. And you can do that in many, many ways. You can have matrices.
Hmm.
You can have axioms or kind of if this, then that type
Hmm.
flowcharts, whether formal, like external or not. But this is where habits and systems that support our brains, where we most need that capacity, whether we
Yeah.
need to be creative or intellectual or have a strong social presence. And what I mean by that is, like being human in one-on-ones. um,
Hmm.
um, that understanding what things can be delegated to your system, to your robots. Automations are such a time saver. What things can be delegated to habits and routines, and once you've built them, they self-sustain, gives you that extra so that you can, you know, pack at a moment's notice, regardless of
Hmm.
whatever the time.
Right. But what I'm hearing you say is that it's important to be able to create, it's the way you deal with an active brain, and that's what I'm hearing you describe. And a leader is going to have, by role, an active brain. It's going to have stuff that's going to be happening
Yeah.
on a consistent basis. And so what we have to do is create space to allow room for that. And you and I were talking about one of my favorite terms, which is the blurriness of busyness, is
Mm.
that we can get caught up in being busy. And what happens, things get blurred. And it's really important what I'm hearing you say as a leader, we have to be able to bring focus, not only for ourselves, but the people who are, looking to us for direction and guidance. Um, and it's more than just delegating, isn't it?
Oh, it's much more than delegating.
Yeah.
What I'm hearing here is it's not just focus, because can sometimes mean narrowing
No,
in and
yeah.
being too in the weeds, but
Mm-hmm.
it is intentional direction and knowing what's out of scope and when to reconsider, so
Mm.
that it's the rhythm of zooming out in order to zoom in, and
Mm.
being able to see the big picture while helping, you know, um, with some of the smaller things. Yeah, and it is the context, being able to hold the big picture in context while making more granular decisions. And
Yeah.
obviously, the higher up you go, you don't have as much time or bandwidth to get involved in those granular things.
Or
But
you
you're
shouldn't
thinking,
be. Yeah, you shouldn't be.
totally.
That's what you just said earlier. You have to, and for the leaders, the manager like myself, who gets stuck in the granular because of if I want to get it done, well then I need to do it myself, or if I need to be involved as opposed to learning how to just turn it loose and assume that the person I'm turning it loose to will do a good job.
Oh,
Uh, and I love this whole concept. When you were talking about this, it's the rhythm of zooming in and out. And I love it because it is. It has to do with it's not static. It's not sort of a monodirectional. As a leader, you're looking at things, you're bringing information in, you're zooming in on it, and then you have to back up and create space. Zooming out to see how that fits in the big picture. Looking as to, have we learned anything additional? Has anything new that's come up? There's an image that's going through my mind over the last couple of months that has to do with, I know you're on the West Coast. I'm in Houston. I don't have any land that moves up and down like you do in San Francisco. I'm in the flatlands. But if we went north of Texas and go up into the Midwest, you'd see these hills that move up and down. And it dawned on me that the settlers, as they were trying to go from one place to another, they couldn't see the horizon. But what happened was when they got up on top of the hill, they could see just far enough to see the next hill. And they would go down the valley, and they would come back up on top of that hill. And then they would go, and then by continuing that direction, guess what? They ended up outside of San Francisco looking for gold. But they had to go through this up and down, this zooming in and out, this ability to be able to stay the course and be able to focus. Thanks for joining us today on Lighting the Path, Strategies for Tomorrow's Leaders. If anything in this podcast speaks to you, if I've challenged you, or if you want to spend time digging into this subject a little deeper, or if you disagree with me, reach out. My contact information is on our website, lightingthepath.net, or email me at mike@mikelejeune.com. Also, look for me on LinkedIn. I'd love to connect our networks. Keep lighting the path for those who choose to follow you. It's more than a responsibility. It's an honor.